Welcome back this week, everybody, to Meet the Candidate. And we appreciate you coming here to find out for yourself who's out there, who's running, and what they stand for, and why you should vote for them. Today, I've got Adam LaRosa, who is running for school board here in Las Vegas. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you.
The first question that I always ask everyone is, why are you running?
I have 4 kids in the school system, so I believe that we can do better as a city and definitely as a state. There's definitely room for growth as a state to offer a better education for the kids. One of the things that I want to focus on for sure is that we offer them the best pathway possible to get into either college or some kind of vocational school. Whatever that they aspire to attain.
So are you, I'm a firm believer in not everybody needs to go to college or should go to college.
Right.
That trade schools are an ideal place to get an education. We need plumbers, we need mechanics, we need construction people. We need all of these, and you don't necessarily have to go to college to be in one of those trades.
No, I fully agree with that, and that's why I said, vocational.
Right.
We need to be able to build up the foundation of our society, which is the working class people. We need to be able to offer a product for all the businesses, that is valid.
Yeah.
You know.
So, what do you think is the most critical issue that's facing the Clark County School District right now?
The white noise. I mean, we could talk about white noise forever, but realistically, it's the curriculums and the subject matter that just do not pertain to helping them being the students, elevate to the next level. I mean, we have different curriculums that are in place right now that aren't going to help the kids, get a better grade on their GED, get a better grade on their ACT, get a better grade on their SAT. Not all of which is necessary for them to progress, but we should at least go by, set a fundamental standard for our children as to what we're trying to get them to achieve. And by throwing all this extra white noise at them consistently, I think that it's taking away from the whole purpose of public schools.
Can you give me some examples or be a little more specific about?
Absolutely.
Because that could cover a whole wide range.
Yeah. That's why I said we could talk about that forever.
Yeah, depending on your perspective. So.
I love the sciences. However, on a national level, the sciences aren't what you're being tested on to move up in education. They're testing you on reading, they're testing you on writing, they're testing you on math, they're testing you on history. So, not that I'd want to take science out of the curriculum altogether, but at the same time, if we're focusing more on curriculums that are not going to help the kids achieve higher levels of education later, whether it be vocational or just higher learning, college, all right, then we're taking away from the kids and we're holding them back from an advantage that they should be able to take advantage of.
So if you're going to scale back the sciences, and I'm not trying to exaggerate or anything, but if you're going to scale back on the sciences, which sciences do you think you should scale back on? Which should you keep? And how, if you don't get that exposure early, where are your doctors going to come from?
Oh, well, see, that's a great question, and I love that you asked that. You're still going to have that in higher learning, all right?
Where does higher learning start?
That's exactly the best question that you could have asked. Where does higher learning start? Well, we have it set up so that higher learning should start after 12th grade, but why? There's no reason for it. There's no reason to hold anybody back. If they can start earning college credits while they're in high school, or even earn their degree while they're in high school, then why not? We're getting the funding for it from the state, so why not invest in our children to get to those curriculums and start learning about that?
But then you have to have that curriculum available to them at that level.
Absolutely, and we do.
So if we do, but you're considering that white noise, I'm seeing a conflict in my head there. It's
all right. I see what you're saying.
Can you explain that to me?
So if we're talking about 1st through 6th grade, okay, and we're building up a stronger curriculum so that they start getting their fundamentals, their reading, their writing, their arithmetic, and their history, just reinforcing that at a younger age, so that they can test out of having to go through what we have traditionally gone through, which is, middle school and high school, and they're testing at such a level where it justifies them getting college credits, then why not? Why should we hold them back to a 12-year program when, there's students that can get it done in 6, there's students that can get it done in 8, there's students that can get it done in 10. You're holding the children back from getting a fuller education that we can offer them, and we've already funded them as citizens.
But not every student learns at an equal pace.
That is absolutely accurate.
And so if you are going to generalize and just educate so that they can pass a test, to me that's kind of defeating the purpose of an education, because in my mind, this is just my own personal opinion, one of the most important things that education should do is teach critical thinking.
Absolutely.
And to teach critical thinking, you have to have a wide variety of subject matter and areas, so that you may, in the 4th grade, decide, you know what, we've got, there's some schools here in the Las Vegas area that have little garden programs where they teach the kids how to grow their own food and things like that.
Right.
Which I think is absolutely phenomenal. It is a requirement, or a something that every student should learn how to do.
Right.
So if you take that away because you think, well, that's taken away from this or it's taken away from that, that reduces the whole experience. And part of the first, my opinion again, the first 6 years or of school should be to expose students to as much as possible so that they can find their own path through the education system.
Okay.
You teach them the basics,
Right.
Reading, writing, arithmetic, history, all of that. We used to have what they called social studies or civics or whatever,
Right.
that is no longer taught,
Right.
which is a huge mistake.
I agree.
And getting students involved, and we used to have to bring in articles from the local newspaper to discuss in class. We don't do that anymore.
Right.
So students at that age don't know what the heck's going on in the world.
Right.
We want to protect them from that. We don't want to expose them to everything that's going on. And I think that gives us a more rounded human being in the long run. So, like I said, these are all just my personal opinions. So
No.
you can send your cards and letters to
No, and I don't disagree with your sentiment of what you're talking about, but you did touch on something that's very important, which is, like you were saying, civics. Okay? That's foundational for history. I mean, if you don't know your country, the nationalized test is based off of U.S. history for the most part.
Right.
Okay.
It's based on what is taught in the school systems.
Correct.
It may not always be based on history itself.
No. You're right.
It's
You're right.
what's being taught.
Right.
So.
Right. You're right. And I think that it would be so much more important that, just like what you were saying with the planting and the gardening and whatnot,
Right.
all of that you can research on your own. But if we don't teach our kids how to do that research on their own, then they are remiss from being able to learn whatever they want.
At least expose them to it.
Right.
And
it's a simple Google search. I can't tell you how many times I Google search whatever.
Okay, at what age did you decide what you wanted to be when you grew up?
Well, I would say that's a great question.
Let's step that back. What was the earliest you can remember thinking, I want to be this when I grow up?
When I was in 1st or 2nd grade, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I loved animals, and I had a dog at the time, so it was like that was something that was important to me. As I got older, it was more along the lines of firefighting and damage control and stuff like that, which is something that I was able to pursue in the military. So I'd like
And
to
why did you pursue that particular path?
To tell you the truth, I kind of fell into it. I didn't realize.
It was something that you were exposed to that
Right.
you thought, wow, I like that.
Right. Exactly.
And that's exactly my point with the kids.
Helping people.
Right.
That was something that, I guess I kind of developed at an early age that I wanted to help people.
Right.
All right. And then I fell into it in the military. I ended up in in a grouping in the military where I was able to pursue something that I had thought about for a long time. So, and I just took off running. So got
But,
as high as I
but
could with
if
it.
you had not been exposed to that, you see the missed opportunities, and that's what I'm talking about with when we start taking things out of the education system, we are removing potential opportunities for students. And if we're trying to educate students to think a certain way, or to be a certain way, or to believe a certain way, then that's what you do. You start taking things out of the system that does not coincide with the path that you want them to walk,
Well,
rather than let them choose their own.
Right. No, and I hear what you're saying, but we already have nationalized tests. Now, if they change the nationalized tests that are available to the students, that are realistically the only threshold that's kind of holding them back.
But
Then-
what is the purpose of those tests?
The purpose of those tests is for advancement. I mean, all of them are for acceptance. All right, the GED is general education diploma. It's for acceptance to the next level. The SAT are readiness tests for college. The ACT is the exact same thing. I mean, we have MCATs, we have LSATs.
And do you think that those tests accurately measure the student's potential?
I don't think that there is a single test that they could write or create that would accurately be able to measure a student's potential for the entire population. It's not even possible because you have way too many different sects within that population.
Too much diversity.
Right, absolutely. But
So
being that we're working with what we already have, that's where we should be developing our curriculum around, is working with what already exists so that we know the pathway.
It sounds to me like what we should actually be doing is working from the top down and not from the bottom up.
Well,
You still have to do the work from the bottom up, but
Right.
the top down needs to be reorganized or rethought or refocused, and getting a student's full potential. What is this student? What are they capable of?
Mm-hmm.
And not, well, we just want you to pass this test because then you can go into college and then you can pass this other test so that you can owe a lot of money to the government for your student loans.
and that's something that I fully disagree with. If we can offer exactly what you were just talking about at a grade school level, all right, then we're curbing a lot of that debt that a lot of kids are finding themselves in post high school.
Because that's what they've been taught.
Exactly.
That's the path that they were sent down.
Exactly.
This is what you need to do.
Mhm.
And to do that, you need to borrow this money so that you can never
Right.
pay it back. I mean, I know doctors now that have been doctors for 15 years
Mm-hmm.
that are still paying student loans.
Oh, my wife is in the same boat. She's
So-
still paying her student loans back.
Right.
So, and I think that if we can get rid of as much of that debt as possible by offering that kind of education at a grade school level, which K through 12 is still considered grade school.
The real value to any country of its population is how educated they are.
Absolutely.
And the more they are educated, and I'm not talking about the more they go to school or the more classes they take, I'm talking about truly educated,
Mm-hmm.
the more valuable the society is and the more valuable the country is.
Oh, yes.
So
Fully agree with that.
I'm not trying to argue with you. I know that you have your belief,
Mhm.
but I think that taking things away from students pushes them in the wrong direction.
And it's not taking them away if you're teaching them how to research it on their own. Because,
But if they've never been exposed to it, how are they going to know what they want to research?
what people are exposed to has everything to do with the demographic of the city, okay? If you have a whole bunch of kids that are walking around with their eyes closed and looking at the ground, yeah, they're going to miss a lot of exposure. But in such a diverse city as Las Vegas, you can't even name one other city in the country that is as diverse as Las Vegas is, all right? And if they're walking around with their head on the ground, yeah, they're going to miss everything going by. But it's not the responsibility of the public education system to expose them to everything imaginable. It is the responsibility of the public education system to point them, to get them going in a direction with fundamental teaching so that they can succeed the most possible as they get older. And right now, I think that we're holding our kids back. I really do. The
So,
foundation
so
of
you're
learning
you're
is
basically
reading
talking
and
about
writing.
just the first six years of school, the first through sixth grade, elementary
Correct.
school or whatever you call it.
Well, we'll do it, K through 8.
Okay.
All right. I
So
think
so then you get into middle school
Right.
or high school, depending on the school system that you're in. You may have the elementary, middle, and then high school.
Mm-hmm.
So at and let's just follow your example through. So at the middle school or the ninth grade level, what starts happening there to the curriculum?
Hopefully, it's going to be a point where certain kids, okay, not all of them, most likely, but certain kids will be able to test out of the standard, elementary curriculum and start going into the more advanced ones. And the more advanced ones, we should be offering it with an added bonus of being college credits. All right? Whether they use them to get their degree or they don't use them to get their degree, at least you're pointing them in a direction where the highest possible chance of success. And that's what I think that we should be aiming for as a society. I mean, it's all of our money that's going towards this. We should be reinforcing our kids.
Well, a lot of it's being wasted too, but
That's absolutely true, and I plan on getting to the bottom of that.
yeah, I think the whole school system needs a forensic audit. So
I agree.
so other than refocusing the curriculum, what other things do you think are necessary for? I mean, you know where we're ranked in this state,
Yep.
bottom of the list.
Yep.
And I attended school here a couple hundred years ago, and
You hold your age well.
in elementary school, and then we moved back to California.
Okay.
And at that time, for the next 2 years, I sat on my ass. I didn't have to do a thing. That's how far ahead the schools in Nevada were of the rest of the country. I had already been taught everything. I left here in the 5th grade, and the 6th and 7th grade in California, I was just skating. I already know that.
I
can pass all the tests, bang,
I'm
bang, bang.
I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum, so I'm kind of glad that you brought that up because you said that you left California or you left Nevada and went to California,
Right.
And you were ahead.
Yes,
All right. I left California and came to Nevada. I was behind.
right.
My first year out here was as a sophomore, all right, and I had to take freshman and junior English in the same year because they said, well, you already took sophomore English for us. That doesn't even make a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep,
So
I do.
It's just, yeah. How do you fix that?
But the other thing is, I think that one of the problems that we face here in Las Vegas is that this is a pretty transient town. Not so much as much as it has been. That's kind of slowing down. But you'll have people here that are here for a year or two, and then they're gone,
Right.
and the kids are gone.
Yep.
And so how do you combat that? How do you prepare those students, knowing that they could possibly be leaving in a year or two to go somewhere else?
By setting the bar so high that no matter where they go, they already know that they got a good education from us.
So if you get somebody in the 2nd grade, that how are you going to know if they're ready to be in the 3rd grade?
Well, we have standardized testing. I mean, they've already invested tons of money into this MAP program, which I don't believe is really having the benefit that it should be having for the children. All right? So if we set it based on, like we were talking about before, nationalized testing, that way we know exactly where they should be because there's going to be different demographics and the statistics are going to be completely different based on, child. There's a whole bunch of foundational elements that are going to be skewing up those demographics. But, as a whole, we just base it on that, go off of the average, and then we know where they should be at the next step.
So what's your stance on parents being able to choose the school that they want their kids to go to?
I do like the idea of doing that, and it would be the entire school system kind of competing for parents. So how is that going to play out in real time is the major question. Because once a school is full, What are you going to do? Just keep packing kids into there so that their average goes down or potentially goes up? I mean, if you put too many kids in front of a teacher, okay, it's going to be hard to reach every single one of them. So school choice, I'm honestly on the fence about. There's certain aspects of it that I do agree with, but on a whole, I think that, let's say that Goldfarb Elementary ends up being the best school, elementary school in in the city. We're going to have people from all over the city trying to go into Goldfarb all by itself, and what are we going to do with the rest of them? I think that the schools should compete against each other, and I think
No,
that...
but why?
Why?
Why should they compete against each other?
Because we
Shouldn't
want
they
to
all
offer...
be equal? Shouldn't your kids be able to go, if they went to this school or this school or this school, they're getting the same education, rather than, okay, this school over here doesn't have the
equal
budget, but
curriculums?
this one doesn't.
Equal curriculums, absolutely, but
Right.
then you have to introduce the variables. The variables are going to be the educators. The variables are going to be the kids. Okay, you can't sit there and say that one school's better than the other if they have the same curriculum, unless you address the variables, which would be the educators and the children. And you know,
So you're going to say, okay, well, these are all the smart kids. We're going to take them and put them over in this school.
Right,
And
and
we're
that-
going to put all the dumb kids over in this school.
and that's exactly why school choice is a very divided topic.
rather than let's, I mean, in Europe, in a lot of the countries, they have a like a partnership program. You're the smartest student in the class. I'm the dumbest student in the class. You and I are going to work together because you are going to be my tutor. You are going to help me get better, which in turn makes you get better. Because if you have to help me learn a subject or a specific thing, you're going to be learning it at the same time.
Right.
So rather than saying, okay, well, you know, hey, I don't want my kids going over there because there's a bunch of dumb kids. I want them going over this school because the teachers are better or whatever. How many teachers are we short in this school year?
How many teachers are we short in
Are
this
we
school
short?
year?
Yeah.
Oh,
Do we have all the teachers we need?
Most likely not. I
Okay.
would say most likely not.
Yeah, and I know you don't know an exact number, but that's my point. What is drawing teachers? How can we get the best teachers that we need for our kids?
We have to
here?
offer them. We have to offer them an incentive package that justifies their existence within our community. I mean, already with Las Vegas being marginally one of the least expensive cities to live in as far as major cities go across the country. The fact that we're not offering teachers a great compensation package to make sure that they stick around and they keep helping the children is a failure on the part of the powers that be that have negotiated said contract. All right, whether it be their medical, I've heard from some teachers that their health care just isn't all that great.
It sucks.
You know, their minimal compensation package, I think that we could definitely do better. And, you know, that's...
But it all comes down to money.
It always comes down
And where's
to
the money coming from?
And the money's coming from the state, and as you've
And the
already
taxes, right?
Right, and you've already touched on we need a full forensic audit, and I fully agree with that sentiment. I think that we do need a full forensic audit to see where all that money's
Because I don't think we have a budget shortfall. I think we have a spending shortfall. We're spending it in the wrong areas.
I agree.
And that's what we need to get a handle on. Do you think that the school district is too large and needs to be broken up?
I think it already is broken up. You figure we got 6 different districts or
Yeah.
6 different trustees that are handling it. There's nothing saying that those trustees can't be the acting superintendent for their districts. I mean, the people are the ones that are deciding who's going to be making the decisions on behalf of their kids.
Right.
So why are we hiring another entity with our tax dollars to do the exact same thing that the board was put there to do?
So do you think that and this is a little bit above your pay grade, but should parents be given vouchers so that they can send their kids to private school, take the money away from the public school and give it to the parents so that they can have their kids attend private school?
Well, that's a great question, and if we're taking taxpayer money to fund private schools, and the taxpayers that are the voting society are the ones that are choosing the curriculum and choosing who's going to be running the public school, then why don't we just get rid of the taxes that are allocated towards schools in the first place and just let everybody go to private school?
Because where's the money going to come from for private school?
It's going to come from the people that aren't paying the taxes. But
Right. So
when we're talking about
you have
30, 40,
you have
or $3,
you have 4 kids.
I do.
In the system.
I do.
So where could you afford to send them? All
Exactly.
4 of them.
I couldn't.
And that's my point. Rather than, I hear it all the time, and it just irritates the hell out of me, is that, okay, well, our education system here is in trouble, right? So rather than fix it, I'm bailing. I'm going over here, I'm going to put my kids in private school.
Right.
So rather than say, I mean, it makes no sense to me that we don't try to get the best students, the best educated people coming through our school systems.
I agree.
That should be our focus.
I agree.
And not, anyway, never mind. So
No,
I'm
no.
not running for anything. I don't want to run for anything. So
No, I hear what you're saying, and I do agree with what you're saying, okay? We should be setting the bar for the private schools, not the private schools setting the bar for us.
right.
All right, and that sentiment I fully agree with, and the fact that even the charter schools, they're still funded by, in large part, by the taxpayers.
Yep.
All right, and they are outpacing the public schools. So at some point, the trustees have to take a look at that and be like, we are doing something fundamentally wrong.
Yeah.
And it just seems like they are not taking the initiative to realize that, and that's the whole reason why I'm running.
So, and I really know very little about who you're running against or anything like that, but the question I always want to ask people who run for the school board, how many kids do you have, and are they in the public school system?
Yeah, mine are in charter school.
Yeah, and if you don't have any kids in the public school system, then what are you doing here?
And hey, you know what?
That may be kind of naive, but
No, it's not naive. All right. If people have their kids in private school, it's for a reason. Not necessarily just because they have the money to do it, but there's got to be an underlying reason behind it. The fact that charter schools are popping up all over the valley is for a reason. It's not because, the public school is so great, oh, we just want to mold our program to the public school, and that's why we're going to become a charter. Or
so
private charter.
so if you could explain to the voters out there the difference between, or what specifically is a charter school here in Vegas?
All right, a charter school has its own trustees, all right, and they are not elected, all right, and they are controlled by the Nevada State Charter Board. Okay, so it's kind of the same setup as public school. They have a local board, they have a state board, and just like the public schools, they answer to the legislature, which is passed down through the bureaucracy of the state level board members.
Right.
All right, so charters and public school are almost equal to each other as far as the amount of bureaucracy that it takes to get something done. However, if the trustees on each of the boards paid attention to the legislature that was actually there, then they could make those changes, just from a trustee standpoint. Just because you have an oversight committee on a state level does not mean that you can't make realistic changes on the city level. That you have the power to do it. You just have to fall into, the mold that was created by the legislature. And if there's something that you don't agree with, then argue it.
So they are not bound by the rules and regulations of the public school system or the Clark County School District?
Well, they are and they aren't.
Okay.
Okay. And the reason why I say that is because the legislature is the overall.
Right.
So
State legislature.
Right, state legislature. All right. So we're both bound by those laws that are written by the legislature. And then where it gets a little bit more murky is once you get those state boards involved. All right. One state board may say something different than the other state board, and it gets filtered down into the charters of the public schools. All right. And it's the responsibility of the trustees on the city level to ensure that what their state boards are telling them to do is actually in line and in sync with the legislature. And if they're not making those arguments, then they're failing.
So if are the charter schools teaching the same curriculum?
No.
Okay, so each charter school could be teaching their own separate curriculum.
Correct.
And it doesn't necessarily follow the same curriculum as the public schools.
Correct.
Okay, so it's basically a way that parents can control a little bit more about what their kids are being taught.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep, exactly.
that's what I thought. Okay. So, anything else you'd like to tell all the people out there about why they should vote for you or anything? This is your chance.
If you'd like to do some research on me, you can find me at LaRosa.com. We're definitely accepting donations for the campaign, and we're trying to just offer the best education possible on the tax dollars for your children.
That's it?
That's all I got.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time.
Hey, John, thanks for the questions.
It's-
They were all different, and I truly appreciate having
Well,
diversity in it.
I'm a voter, and I try to ask the questions that I think other voters would want to know. That my kids are all grown.
Right.
My kids are probably older than you are. But but what goes on in the school systems affects me.
Yes.
I want educated doctors. I want educated politicians. I want people sitting on the school board or the city council or the auditor's office or the state senate that have an education and not an indoctrination.
Right.
And that's what scares me the most. So
Yes, and I even have it on my website where it's just take the rhetoric out of school. I don't care if it's left. I don't care if it's right. I don't care if it's conservative or liberal. Just take the rhetoric out of school. Let the kids be kids.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing.
Okay. Everybody, you hear me say this every time. When you go into the ballot box, there is a long ballot. You need to get all the way down to the bottom. Don't stop halfway through because you think these people don't matter. You've got your commissioners, your city council members, your sheriffs, school board, trustees. All of these people affect your daily lives every single day. They are more important to be voting for than the top of the ticket because they do impact you on a daily basis, and they impact your neighborhood, your neighbors, everybody. So when you get in there to vote the whole ballot, and take at least 2 of your friends with you. Not in the same voting booth, but just give them a ride down there so that they can vote. In the last election, the last presidential election, I think it was, and I'm not sure if the numbers are exact, but something like only 47% of registered voters actually voted.
We can do so much better.
And
we should do so much
only
better.
60% of eligible voters registered. So you have 47% of 60% making the decisions for all the rest of us.
Right.
So make your own decisions, get out there and vote. And thank you again. Thanks, man, for coming in
John, thanks for having me.
and letting the people know. And like I always say, if you're going to do it with styles. Thanks.